Idaho Matters podcast is brought to you by St. Luke's On-Demand Virtual Care, which allows patients to see a provider from their home using a computer or smartphone with on-demand care for common ailments, such as a cough, sore throat, or a sinus issue. More information at stlukesonline.org. I'm Gemma Gaudette, the host of Idaho Matters. We'll be taking you to all Idaho's 44 counties this year, like when we heard about the 125th anniversary of the Women's Century Club in Canyon County.
It's just been such a tradition of community support and wonderful things, and 125 is spectacular.
Who should we talk to in your county? Send us your ideas to idahomatters@boisestate.edu and tune in each weekday at noon and 8 for Idaho Matters. More Idaho Matters now from the studios of Boise State Public Radio News. I'm Gemma Gaudette. In the Gem State, homeowners insurance premiums and policy cancellations are shooting up, and they're doing so in surprising places like the state's southern plains. Now, experts say the risk of a catastrophic urban wildfire like Colorado's Marshall Fire may be at play. And with the legislative session now underway this week, bipartisan concern is on the rise. Mountain West News Bureau's Murphy Woodhouse reports.
Wendy and Larry Nevers' still new to them home is about a 30-minute drive west of Boise. Their neighborhood of nice homes on large lots is mostly surrounded by farmland.
Hello there. Wendy, I'm sure.
Their dog, Steve Buscemi, one of 5 pets, accompanied Wendy to the door.
That's Steve.
Steve, little blue thing.
Blue.
Steve and Blue, and then we have a cat.
That one's Shorty. And there's 2 more.
The two moved to the Treasure Valley a little over a year ago after Larry retired from a Washington school district.
And I really enjoy the neighborhood, but I'm not happy with the increase in my homeowners insurance this year.
Their premium for the first year was around $830.
And then this year's $1,080. That's almost a 30% increase.
And that's with a roughly $140 discount they got after installing a new roof. Wendy says she budgets for 5% increases in expenses like insurance, which her steadily growing retirement nest egg can easily cover.
But it doesn't grow 30% a year. So I cannot keep up with that.
Her agent pointed to inflation, wildfire risk, and other factors cited by many experts to explain growing precarity in the homeowners insurance market across the West. But Wendy is skeptical.
Explain this, where are the numbers? Show me the numbers. And then
an unwelcome surprise for the Nevers, new data from the Idaho Department of Insurance shows that their experience is now a common one. Similar or far steeper increases are seen across the state, along with widespread policy cancellations.
This is everybody's problem, and it's a dramatic problem that's impacting the entire state.
That's Dean Cameron, Idaho's top insurance official. Earlier this year, his office mandated that insurers provide detailed data between 2022 and 2024. It showed that premiums rose nearly 40% to roughly $1,800 on average. That was accompanied by a collapse. 40,000 homeowner policies, or about 9% of the market, were also gone, driven by factors like cancellations.
It is very, very rare to see that significant of a drop. It shows really unhealthiness in the marketplace.
Rising claim payouts and rebuilding costs in the wake of destructive wildfires and other disasters are key factors at play. That's according to the head of the Northwest Insurance Council, an industry nonprofit. Insurers have to be mindful of risk, according to the council, because their first responsibility is to remain solvent, to be able to pay out significant claims even after major losses. Colorado's Marshall Fire is an example of how quickly and spectacularly those insured losses can come. Just before New Year's Eve 2021, the wind-driven inferno killed 2 and destroyed over 1,000 homes in less than 24 hours, causing more than $2 billion in damage.
The Marshall Fire burned down a hotel. It forced the evacuation of a Chuck E. Cheese. We're talking about a fire in suburbia. And it really changed my conception of what is the wildland-urban interface.
That's Jennifer Balch, a longtime fire scientist at the University of Colorado Boulder. In a 2024 paper, she and her co-authors argue that it is rapid growth, not fire size, that matters most when it comes to risks to neighborhoods. They found that blazes that grew faster than 4,000 acres in a day, less than 3% of incidents, accounted for nearly 90% of structures damaged or destroyed. Many of them burned through grass, like the Marshall Fire, just a short drive from Balch's campus.
Our fastest fires are not moving through forests, they're actually moving through grasses.
Idaho so far has been spared its own Marshall, but there is no shortage of fast fires. Study data shows that 15 of the 100 fastest incidents in 2 recent decades were in the Gem State. Nevada had 13, and fast fires in general are pervasive across the West. In Idaho, some of the sharpest homeowners policy drops, nearly 20% in some cases, are in the Snake River Plain, where those fast fires are concentrated. The Northwest Insurance Council says providers in Idaho are likely responding to that risk. The ingredients for a Marshall-style catastrophe are drought-dried grass, high winds, a spark, and homes in the way, according to Balch. Those same extreme red flag conditions return to the Colorado Front Range this month.
And my guess is that there are regions in Idaho that have that constellation and that are set up for these types of disasters.
That's the scary side of the coin, she says. The hopeful side is that it's a solvable problem.
Next up is House Bill 384.
In March, an Idaho House of Representatives committee considered a measure that would have created a so-called wildfire risk mitigation fund to provide grants for replacing roofs, protecting eaves, and otherwise preparing homes for wildfire. It was backed by Cameron, who said that it could help keep homes standing and reduce insurance premiums.
It's a national problem. It's not just an Idaho problem. We're watching other states as carriers are leaving other states. We're trying to get out in front of it and prevent situations like we're seeing in Colorado and California and other states where carriers are leaving faster than they're coming in.
But the measure was met with concerns and skepticism about the scale of the problem.
Director, I get it. I mean, apparently we are facing some concerns, most of them anecdotal in my mind, but...
The committee voted to hold the bill, and the Republican-dominated legislature passed no insurance measures last session.
This is Mike.
But a lot has happened since. Here's Republican Representative Mike Pahanka.
I don't think it'll fall off the radar this year.
His district includes the world-famous resort community of Sun Valley, where premiums have jumped by well over $2,000 in 2 years. It also includes large swaths of the Snake River Plain. He's struggling to understand what's happening in his district. He says he and other lawmakers from both parties are hearing from constituents who are also worried and confused.
We need to make sure that the citizens are covered.
And he thinks there will be bipartisan support next session to do so. And his Democratic colleague Monica Church says the data from Cameron's office helped.
Once people see it, you can't unsee it. It's very clearly an issue in every single legislative district.
The first-term state representative says she was shocked when she saw the massive shifts in and around her Boise area district, neighborhoods far from the wooded areas traditionally seen as most at risk.
They are in the middle of cities in the flatlands.
She intends to push a measure to require at least 60 days notification when insurers plan to drop customers.
It's chaos, and 60 days is not a long time to deal with chaos, but it's a start.
The other, inspired by a recent Colorado insurance reform, would require more transparency from the industry.
If they are going to raise rates, or, God forbid, they are going to issue a non-renewal, they have to give the homeowner the criteria.
They'd also have to tell the homeowner what mitigation strategies could help. The Northwest Insurance Council's member companies support Director Cameron's grant program and would likely not strongly oppose Church's proposal for 60-day notifications, according to its president. He did say that any new law that requires insurers to change their policies or operations has a cost, which policyholders will inevitably bear some of. But Church says doing nothing also has a cost.
It's just going to get worse.
Back at her Nampa home, Wendy thinks there are some things she can do on her own in the absence of legislative action.
Even though I think the fire danger is low, I am going to do away with a bush that's right here next to the house. And the wood deck is on the hit list, too.
She still expects more rate increases.
I think that our legislators could set aside whatever their differences are, because we know they have them, and work for the good of the people and see if they can't come up with a plan.
With her insurance bill fresh in her mind, she says she's going to lean on them to do just that. For the Mountain West News Bureau, I'm Murphy Woodhouse.
So joining us live now is Murphy Woodhouse, reporter with the Mountain West News Bureau. Murphy, nice to have you back on to talk more in detail about this.
Absolutely. Lots to talk about.
Okay, so Murphy, lots of data and details in that story that we played right before our conversation, but you've been reporting on this for months now. So what are some other important things that you've learned in this process?
Yeah, so this was certainly one of my bigger reporting projects, and of course it builds on a lot of the reporting from last spring that I did with our Mountain West News Bureau colleague Rachel Cohen. And I would encourage folks to track down the web version of the most recent story, because there's just lots of additional information. You can find that and much of our other significant reporting on a dedicated page at the bottom of the Boise State Public Radio homepage. But anyway, for me, I mean, this reporting was a journey for myself. I really had to confront my own doubts about why we were seeing such dramatic shifts in the Snake River Plain. And, even though I've been on fast fires in the area, I kind of rejected the idea at first that fire could be at play. But, Director Cameron's pushback, the work of Dr. Balch, and responses from the industry itself I think they all show that we have a potentially very serious problem there. And I also learned a lot about how this looks from the perspective of insurers themselves, and that's really thanks to Kenton Brine, who is the president of the Northwest Insurance Council. That's an industry group. We had a very lengthy email back and forth, and he very gamely engaged with my sometimes difficult questions. And I think that really one of the key questions that folks out there have is, why are insurers making these decisions? And Brian Kenton, I think, put it pretty well. He says there are basically three things going on. One, insurers may be worried about the concentration of policies that they have historically underwritten in an area, and because of the possibility of unsustainable losses, they may respond with policy cancellations to reduce risk. They may also have difficulty finding reinsurance, which is the insurance that companies themselves take out to protect against massive losses, and that can force those companies to reconsider how much risk they can cover. And then finally, Kenton said that insurers may combine some non-renewal activity with significant increases in premiums for the policyholders still able to maintain coverage. And those policy increases may in turn also cause some people to leave their insurance. But Brian did also say that there are some early signs that the U.S. homeowners market could be stabilizing, while noting that inflation and climate change fueled disaster losses continue to affect premiums and availability. A return to overall profitability is expected in 2026 this year, and that's according to the Insurance Information Institute. And that could help over time improve market resilience and support more stable pricing for consumers, the industry-backed nonprofit said in a release.
Mm-hmm. So, Murphy, tell us about what's happened since all of this, and because there's an event, right?
Yeah, so I think probably the most important thing that has happened is that the legislative session has started. I believe Monday was the first day, and I do think that this issue is going to be one of many that gets a fair bit of bipartisan attention this session. But yeah, as you mentioned, last week I attended an event in Crouch that frankly I'm still thinking about.
Why was the event significant?
Yeah, so Crouch is where I did a lot of my early insurance reporting, and that's because Boise County had the state's highest non-renewal rate in 2023 per federal data. And given that background, a trio of 3 state representatives decided to hold a bipartisan forum on the issue last Wednesday. And I mean, it almost sounds like the setup to a joke. 2 Democrats and a conservative Republican walk into a rural Idaho bar. But that really happened. But before the town forum I was there for got going, I swung by the Longhorn in Crouch, which has great burgers, I feel obligated to say. And there were Boise area Democratic Representatives Monica Church and Brooke Green. And they were at the table with one of the area's representatives, and that's conservative Republican Faye Thompson. They were joined by a representative of the state's insurance department for the cherry on top of the joke setup. But after finishing their dinners, the trio walked across the street to the community hall for the forum on homeowners insurance that they organized together. And here's how they introduced things, and we'll hear from Representatives Thompson, Green, and Church in that order.
As a resident of District 8, I live in Valley County. I'm facing the same issues that you guys are facing. My premiums have raised in the last 2 years about $300 a month. We want to do something on legislation that's bipartisan because this affects Brooke, it affects Monica, it affects everybody in this room.
When it's home, health, family, and faith, those are the big 4 things. When stuff starts to impact those, it matters. And this is about retaining and keeping your homes.
We can't understand what to do if we don't understand what's happening.
So, this issue is of course important because it's impacting tens of thousands of regular Idahoans across the state. But I do think it's notable that there are at least these 3 legislators facing very serious insurance situations themselves.
Okay, so Murphy, we heard what the representatives had to say. Did we hear anything from the audience?
We very much did. They had lots to say, lots of strong feelings. But I'd like to focus on 3 very compelling stories that I heard, and I think that they really speak to some of the key implications of all of this. So first, let's hear from Carol Lobin. She helps run the Garden Valley Senior Center, which is a very important local institution given the significant elderly and retired population in the area. So after a pair of significant claims, they were canceled and ultimately had to turn to what is likely a so-called surplus line policy. And we'll talk a bit more about those after we hear about the policy details from Carol.
Now we're paying $10,000 with a $40,000 smoke fire deductible, $10,000 for water, $5,000 for anything else. So you might as well not have insurance, except I have to have it to run the place. And I just think it's ridiculous.
So, I mean, when I heard that, I almost didn't believe it, and I had to kind of re-listen to the tape. I mean, what she is saying is their policy, it is $10,000 a year in premiums, and that comes with a $40,000 deductible for fire and smoke damages, and then lower deductibles for other things, but obviously that's a major concern in the area. So Carol said they had to cash out a certificate of deposit to be able to pay for that insurance, which, again, she noted does not feel much like insurance. And so the Idaho Department of Insurance, they sent Randy Pipel, I believe is how you pronounce his last name, to represent the agency. And he told Carol that surplus lines, which is likely the sort of policy the center now has, they're not regulated by the state and have many issues, like the multi-tier deductibles she referenced for different risks. And he called surplus lines, quote, the Wild West of insurance. And then we also heard from Mike Krill, who spoke to the frustration and anxiety faced by the many folks on fixed incomes in the area.
In the last 5 years, we've been canceled twice. Okay, we have had Boise County come up for mitigation, show us what we need to do, and also Garden Valley Fire have been up there. They've done an assessment of our property, and the lady says there is nothing more that you can do. She says we need to use your place as a model for what people should do to, clear the area around, no brush, whatever. So we've done that, all that we can do there. Like most of the people, or a good share of the people in this valley, we're on a fixed income, okay?
And he says a lot of folks like them are worried about being able to simply keep their homes. And finally, we all heard from a local realtor, Val Jones, and she shared a very compelling story about the serious knock-on real estate effects of the insurance crisis. So let's hear from Val.
I'm a local realtor in the Garden Valley area, and it's not only affecting all of us that live here full-time or part-time, it's also affecting people trying to move here. I just had a deal on the river, like no trees around, just river, on the river. And they were qualified, we were going to go to close, and the insurance was so high, it was like $450 a month, that it took them, they couldn't qualify anymore. So they missed their dream home, turned upside down a couple families, and it was just sad to see that.
So however fanciful or out of reach it may now seem for many of us to be able to buy a home, it remains a core element of the American dream. And it was just really unsettling to put myself in the shoes of either party here, a major financial decision collapsing unexpectedly over something that was hardly on anyone's radar until the last, couple of years.
Mm-hmm. So Murphy, with that said, are there solutions or ideas that folks have?
Yeah, I mean, this was honestly one of the most impressive things about the forum. I mean, obviously very compelling stories of impacts, but then, I mean, these people understand the situation and they understand what's going on, and they do have ideas about what to do. We heard from a lot of folks about getting more transparency from the industry, explanations of why rates are going up or cancellations are being issued, more support for local emergency services. Several folks pointed to the fact, I like many people in the Boise area, I love going up to the Garden Valley. I take 55 to get there. And people pointed that a lot of the first responders that they do have, many of whom are volunteers, they're often responding to Highway 55 to deal with collisions involving non-locals. And that spreads the already limited resources they have very thin, complicating fire response. One person even suggested the possibility of the community itself standing up its own insurance program. But the three representatives frankly discussed, and I think to their credit, the power that lobbyists wield on this and other important policy questions. But they said that that's a power that can be challenged. So let's hear from Representative Green here.
When we work together, they hate it, because if they can divide us out and get one group, to vote against a bill, then they're winning. But when we actually work together, we're their biggest threat, because we recognize, we are unified. We're working towards something for the masses. And the other thing is, like Monica said, show up and tell your stories.
Yeah, so I know that other legislators are hearing stories like this, and I think that that's only going to increase as the legislative session progresses.
So, did we hear anything else from any of the legislators besides Representative Green after all of these folks had the opportunity to tell their stories?
Yes, so I had a great conversation with Representative Faye Thompson after the forum. I mean, this was her district. I mean, these are her constituents that are sharing these really unsettling stories. And here's what she had to say about how the forum impacted her.
Hearing everybody's stories and their cancellations and stuff, it really hits it even harder next to my heart that we need to do something. What can we do? We don't know at this point. It's going to take a lot of work to do what's right for everybody, and that includes even the whole state of Idaho, not just Garden Valley or District 8. This is a statewide, even a nationwide issue.
Yeah, so she was reluctant to discuss, specific policy proposals, but in general, she said that increased transparency from the industry, and that was a repeated call from attendees, that would be a good first step. And here's her thinking on that.
If we get that transparency through and they start to have to look at that and tell us what they are actually making their premiums off of, or the model that they're making those premiums off of, maybe we'll see some rates go down because there's some honesty there. Transparency is honesty.
So the legislative gears are now turning, of course. Last session, legislators failed to pass any reform measures on the matter, and that's despite the efforts made by Director Cameron, who is a former legislator himself, and others to try to bring that issue front and center. So it is hard for me to imagine measures dying unceremoniously in committee as they did a year ago. But whether any reforms are passed, that's really now in the hands of Representative Thompson and her many colleagues. But I think it will also really come down to impacted Idahoans and whether or how much they decide to push their representatives on this issue.
Well, Murphy, appreciate your reporting on this. It's so critically important. We've been talking with Mountain West News Bureau reporter Murphy Woodhouse about Idaho's home insurance crisis. I'm Gemma Gaudette, and this is Idaho Matters.
Looking for another podcast to listen to? Check out The Nature of Idaho from our partner station KISU in Eastern Idaho. Join hosts Peter Pruitt and Dr. Leif Tapanilla as they share fascinating stories from the Gem State's great outdoors, celebrating Idaho's wildlife, landscape, and natural wonders. That's The Nature of Idaho from KISU. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.